Cause and people look at him and they're like, "You rap?" You know, you ever get that? Oh, you rap? And then you blow them the fuck away, and they're like, "Oh shit, what happened?" Like,
Nobody's threatened by the engineer.
you know,
That's amazing.
they're fucking yeah. Plus, he records, makes beats, produces most of the stuff. A lot of the stuff we've been working on.
All the beats.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Back to my childhood. Um, it was more like I didn't live it like I never seen the suburb part of LaSalle. You know,
right.
it was still a city. Like there's all these drugs and everything around. You know what I mean? Not because of my folks and shit, but it's just
It's just the environment.
I remember finding needles on the street, like right by Labatt at fucking like 4 or 5 years old. You know what I mean? So it's like
I mean,
strange times, crazy times, man.
so like you grew up in kind of a rougher environment in the South, and I don't want to like emphasize that in a negative way. I just think that sometimes people hear some people talk about certain things in their music, and they aren't cognizant of the fact that certain parts of the city are actually a little bit like that. My part of the city is currently very not like that to my knowledge, but like just the fact that up until a certain
Yeah,
point,
but bro, this is what it is in Montreal. Sorry to cut you off, G,
go for it.
but it's like you could be sitting there, fucking totally oblivious to what you live around, and you don't even know what goes down. You know what I mean?
I have come to learn what you mean a lot more as I talk to people through my adventures, and my whole perception of things has
Especially
changed.
when I heard you came from Elmhurst, I was like,
Yo, I lived on
Elmhurst,
Elmhurst, and then I found
and this
out.
nigga doesn't know it. I was like, yo, people get shot. Well, that was back in the day. You know what I mean?
That's it. I came to Elmhurst 2012 to like 2016 ish, right? So like a lot of people left Elmhurst, as I understand it, not long after I got there. So it's
Yeah.
like I just happened to go. I guess you could. It's possible I'm part of that gentrifying wave at this point in my life, and I have to kind of admit that's where I'm at with it. But like I just managed to go 33 years in the city without really encountering that other side of the life outside of maybe knowing a few people in hip hop do a couple of things. So it's like to me to find out like that there are people would like Holden, yo, these are actual things that, and I'm like, oh fuck. I mean, it makes sense with a city as big as it is and shit, but like you can just go here and not be cognizant of some realities that took place for other people because of how big and how diverse the city actually is.
Sure. Yeah. It's because like for so many years, people didn't know all the corruption, all the stuff, and then you turn around and bang, there it is. You know, it's like, well, it's been happening for 40 years. Nobody, like, you know, so it's like that's like that could be anything. You know,
Yeah, and so it's like,
like you could live like across the street to a murder, or you don't know what's happening. You know, so who's to say what's a a crazy neighborhood and a not crazy neighborhood, you know?
I mean, that's the
Like
truth
if
of it.
shots are going off, that's a crazy neighborhood, you know. Stay away from there.
But like, yeah, that's kind of why I appreciate talking to people here is because you get to understand why certain people make the music they make a lot more like because when you're kind of ignorant to it you might not have the full understanding and you might think certain people are kind of faking it or misrepresenting the reality. So hearing that like you grew up in an environment where it straight up has like needles and shit, it's like, oh shit, that is not what the fuck it looked like when I grew up in my part of town.
And bro, that if I swear to God, it was right across the street from Hayward Park by Early. So if anybody even knows that, by Barron's. So that's straight facts, you know. Um,
But still,
I don't
um
want to get into the criminal
no,
element.
I'm not me neither.
If it's if you're asking, or if my fans or whoever ever asks, or somebody asks, like, oh, this guy is not real. He never went through anything. Like, if you know what I've been through and like my past occupations and stuff like that,
It's
you
not
you
it's
know
not
what I
even
mean?
about your
It's like,
criminal. It's just the idea of you
nah,
being so
it's because like
young and being in that environment. in and of itself.
Like, I don't think people should rap about stuff that they're not prone to.
Right. And I mean, I
For
don't.
sure. But what could we do? My mom's didn't have a lot of money. My pops didn't have a lot of money. We weren't rich, So you live way you roll with the punches and you do what you gotta do.
And
You
I
gotta stay
respect that.
alive no matter what. Just like this pandemic, right?
That's true. So yeah, you're like 17 and you guys are kind of figuring out how to record mixtapes, but at what point do you decide you're going to start rapping? Is it at that point, or is it like before then that you're like freestyling or doing other things?
We were always rapping in the parks and shit like that. Rapping in the parks. When we figured out how to make a real song, it was in the studio. That's when we finally went to a studio. Big up my man Georgie Carter. He's in Halifax right now. He lives in Halifax. But he basically showed, because I went to school for engineering, right?
Right.
Yeah. I went to school for engineering, and then I was like, well, if I would have bought a whole bunch of equipment, I would have fucking learned this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So then once I start going to the studio, I click with the engineer. He's super cool, and then I really know how to use like the board and everything else, and like besides school, because school is hands-on also, but it wasn't like go make your own song, and do what you want. You know what I'm saying?
Right. School has like a structure to it where you're learning it, but it's under their rules. It's not really like free. When were you doing this? Like going to school for this and getting into it? Like, do you remember what year it was about?
In school, I think it was around 2000,
Okay, so you're like,
or maybe even earlier.
I think it was a bit earlier.
It was earlier because 1999 is when I dropped. I think we dropped our first track in '99,
damn.
and
that's
I had
early.
already hooked up with the guy at the studio, so it must have been a year right before, because I was like, I finished the school and I was like, fuck this place, because I was in the middle of a forest, and I was like, I gotta get back home to the city, I gotta get home to Texas, and that's what happened. So
But you're saying that, like, all things considered, as far as like the timeline of Montreal life goes, in 1998 you're learning how to like sound engineer and shit, and by like 1999 y'all are releasing a song. I mean, all things considered, that's, I'm not gonna say the earliest, but fairly early in the process of building up and I'm assuming it's English music, right? Or it could be French. I might be wrong.
yeah, no, it's English.